Trying to share my screen here, sorry. There we go. Is that good?
Perfect. We see it just fine. Thank you.
Okay, great. Hi, my name is Mary Tabat. I am a clinical instructor of TESOL at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County in Maryland. I was an ESOL teacher for a number of years, whoops. And now I do teacher education. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about supporting English learners during distance learning. I don't know your profile, if you are, if your students speak English, like what their level is or what your level is as an English speaker. So if you have particular questions, I'm happy to communicate with you. My email address is tabat@umbc.edu. So English learners have some particular needs that are shared with learners in general, but are particularly important for English learners. One is engagement. In order to learn anything, of course, you have to be engaged, you have to be active, you have to be paying attention. Your mind has to be on what you're learning. As the previous speaker said, if you're listening to music and singing songs, then you're not paying attention to what's in front of you. So engagement is really important for English learners when they're in a classroom or when they're doing online learning. If the language isn't really geared toward their proficiency level, it may be difficult for them to focus and pay attention. So it's really important that they are actively engaged in doing things during the lesson. Another important factor is, let's go to this one, connectedness. So students need to make connections between their own learning, their own background learning that they've done previously to new learning. That's how they make new connections in the brain, right? They need to make connections between what they're doing in one classroom and another classroom. They need to make connections between themselves and other people. They need to make connections between oops, I don't know how to take that off. Okay. They need to make connections between what their home life is, what their home experience is, and what their school experience is. Another factor is metacognition. So metacognition is understanding and being aware of how you learn. So for students that are learning English, they need to be aware of their language learning strategies. So they need to learn how to learn. This will help them to become lifelong learners. This will help them to be able to meet a new situation and know how to handle it. So if they come across an unfamiliar vocabulary word, for example, if they've developed learning strategies such as looking for context clues, looking for visual images that might support that, being able to break the word down into roots, prefixes, suffixes, looking for cognates in another language that they know. All of these strategies that they build help them to become more effective learners. Okay, and I'm going to go over here to scaffolding. So scaffolding, again, is something that benefits all learners. But scaffolding for English learners, and this is actually something I've been trying to drill into my students who are teachers or they're becoming teachers. Sometimes we expect English learners to do what everyone else is in the class is doing. We give them the same materials, we give them the same support when they actually need more support because they're not able to do things in a new language if they haven't learned the language elements required, if they haven't learned the vocabulary and grammar that is needed. So scaffolding for English learners has that extra step of English language development, whereas everyone else in the class might need specific content related vocabulary. English learners will need that, and they'll also need other academic vocabulary and maybe even everyday language that other students are coming to the classroom already knowing, because their home language is English and it matches the language of the classroom. Okay, and then in the center, so in the center I do have this language focus, because again, my students, I'm trying to have them focus on language, language, language. The students really need language support. That's why they're English learners. So we need to make sure that our students are getting listening, speaking, reading, and writing practice, that they're able to develop their pronunciation skills, that they're able to build their structural grammar skills, that they're able to expand their vocabulary and learn how words mean different things in different contexts, how to build on words to make other words using prefixes, affixes, etc. So what does this mean for distance learning? So I took some key notes about what schools would need to do to support English learners effectively. And I've made notes here. I'm going to go over 3 different categories with you. So the first one is planning. And these are things that you might look for from your teachers or ask about if you don't see evidence of this. So as another speaker said, you can be your child's best advocate and let them know if you don't see supports that you think would benefit your child. Because we're all learning as we go with distance learning. So the first thing is planning. Now, obviously, teachers are planning ahead for the whole year. They're breaking it down into units, to quarters, to weeks, to everyday planning. What I think would be really helpful for teachers who want to support their English learners is to help share some of that long-range planning with parents when possible. And this doesn't have to be specific, every little activity that's doing, but if they're aware of topics that are coming up, specific content, specific activities, anything that they can share ahead of time with parents could help them to help the parents to at home work with the English learners to develop language skills that they need in English or to support with home language. Weekly planning. I think it's really important for teachers to, during this time of distance learning, to give weekly schedules to their students, to all their students. My 2 students, I know, I work full time, I'm a single parent. So when they're doing their schoolwork, I can't always be with them. I can't always stop what I'm doing and go and help them learn what they need to learn or give them support. So if planning is set up week by week, students and parents and families can plan for when they have time to support learners at home. So that if a learner has a project, they can break it down into like, okay, I can do this, it's due on Monday. So maybe I don't have time during the week because my parent is working, but we can schedule time on the weekend to work on this project. The parent can prepare. If the parent needs to do research, sometimes I know I need to do a little bit of research myself on a topic before I can help my students if it's something that I haven't studied for a while. So that gives parents time to plan ahead so that they can better support their students. And then of course, daily planning, so that daily planning, letting the students know every day, like this is what is expected of you. Again, I advocate for weekly planning so that you can say here day by day, this is what I want you to do, so that you're not procrastinating and doing everything at the end of the week. But this is what I expect you to do day by day. But long range, these are the projects that you'll turn in every week. I personally feel that that's good for when you have a wide range of situations in which families are trying to manage this schoolwork. Okay, so a lot of other people have already talked about routines and structures, so I don't want to spend too much time on that because it was covered very well already. But this is going to be important just as you have your structure and your routines in your classroom, where you know the first thing that you do when you come in maybe is a warm-up. You know, like you submit your homework this way. We know that every Friday we have this special activity. The same routines and structures can be set up online. This will give learners stability, knowing what to expect. It will help everybody to keep structure during a very unstructured time when after the, when students are done their schoolwork, they might not have a lot of structure. They might be playing video games with their friends or reading or hopefully reading or watching TV. Interdisciplinary collaboration. This is super important. I don't know if anyone else has experienced this, but my children have had multiple platforms that they've had to log into, multiple logons. They've had one teacher wants to use this platform, another wants to use this one. There are different apps that I've had to download to communicate with different teachers. It all becomes quite a bit to handle when we're already handling a lot. So if possible, if you can request from your teachers, if students only have to learn one or maybe two learning platforms, that would be really helpful. If one tool will do, could it be used across the team, the teaching team, the grade level, instead of having students keep downloading multiple tools and learn the specifics of one versus the other. For content as well, it's helpful for the learners to have that content reinforced if collaboration is done across the subject areas, so that what's being done in reading supports what's being done in math and what's being done in social studies, etc. That reinforcement is especially helpful for English learners who benefit from that reinforcement. And that's actually my next point here. They benefit from reviewing language over and over again, recycling it into new situations. So if they're using transition words to explain something like first, next, then, also, therefore, in one subject area, and then they can transfer that to another subject area, recycling that helps it to go get pushed into long-term memory, and they're able to retrieve it more quickly the next time when they want to use it. So this is very beneficial. Also spiraling. Spiraling is when you learn a concept a little bit. So the English learners might know to use the preposition after for time, like after I go to bed, I go to sleep. After I wake up, I brush my teeth. They might know it that way, but then later on, they learn it a little bit. They learn a little bit more how I can use it in different contexts. So you can use it for spacing, like somebody's standing. Janet is after me in line, or I can't think of another example off the top of my head right now, but anyway, like, so learning how to use a word or a structure in more situations and knowing it more deeply. Vocabulary words, learning like a basic meaning of a vocabulary word and then learning deeper meanings as you go on. So the more that that teachers can be interdisciplinary, the more that students can benefit from that. And also within one specific classroom, it's beneficial for the teacher to think about how this language is being reused and recycled. Okay, so organized materials, that is, if the teacher's organized, that helps the student be organized, right? So again, if you can house everything in one area, if you're using like Google Classrooms, you can house the materials in one place. That makes it a lot easier for the student. They don't have to, the added burden of going here, there, and everywhere. And then of course, clear, reasonable deadlines, because again, we're all dealing with a lot. Scaffolding. Scaffolding is helping the students reach higher than they can reach on their own. So they're standing on their own feet, they might not be able to reach the top of a tall building. But if they can climb up this little scaffold, this ladder support, they can reach higher and higher. So how do teachers scaffold? For English learners, in addition to the text that's given to everybody else, you might request from the teacher alternative and additional texts. These might be videos, they might be articles online, they might be simplified texts. You can also, as a parent, find alternative and additional text materials, but often you can if you ask the teacher for support, they might be able to help you. Making connections to prior knowledge, so students' experiences, that will help students scaffold. Giving clear step-by-step instructions. So instead of, and another speaker mentioned this, instead of giving a project and saying, do all of this and it's due at a certain time. If you can chunk it into, okay, here's the first step. Do this step first, and then when they're finished that, then here's the next step. This is what we're gonna do next. So breaking that down will make it seem less overwhelming to the student, and they might be more likely to understand what's expected of them. Giving good models. Models and examples are always helpful for every student. English learners will especially benefit because they can use the language in the model and apply it to their own writing or presentations or whatever they're turning in. Comprehension checks. Teachers sometimes will just ask students, do you understand? Or if you don't understand, just let me know. English learners may not be able to ask for the help that they need. So giving a comprehension check in which you ask specific questions or ask students to paraphrase or summarize what you said, or ask them to demonstrate something that they've just learned, that's a better comprehension check than just putting it on the student to ask questions. I know my students and my children are native speakers, and they won't ask for help from the teacher. Like, they will not ask the teacher for help. So if an English learner has that additional language barrier, they might be even less likely to ask for help. Okay, graphic organizers. I think most people are familiar with graphic organizers. This can help with learners with their writing. It can help them even before speaking. So giving students a graphic organizer to work with to organize their materials could help them before they have to share something out with the class. And I want to give you an example of something that sentence frames and word walls. Okay, so if this is a really simple one that you might use with a level 1 ESOL student, but you could apply it to higher levels. So students are learning about the seasons, they're learning about basic verbs, basic activities, physical activities. If they're lower level, they might not be able to compose a sentence by themselves yet. So giving them this sentence frame in blank, I like to blank, allows them to write a sentence or say a sentence even when they couldn't do it on their own, because they have that support. Giving the language that they need here, the word bank or a word wall will help them to, they can fall back on that. You can illustrate it as well. I like to have students keep vocabulary books where they write down words that the class is focused on, and also have space where they're writing vocabulary that's particularly relevant to them. And they can illustrate it. Sometimes students will write a short sentence to describe it. That you can use native language equivalents, that's fine. It helps them to process more if they don't have the native language equivalent. It helps them to process more deeply if they have to think about it and read the English description or sample sentence. And keep checking my time. Let me know if I'm good over. Support from schools. Okay, so here we're going to talk about interaction. This is super important, as I mentioned, for English learners because they need to practice their reading, writing, listening, and speaking in order to develop their English. So the first thing that teachers need to do is maximize their interaction with teachers in classroom when they're having that synchronous class session. So if they're online with the students, talking to the students, as I'm doing right now, I'm talking to all of you parents, talking, that's not giving them the interaction that they need. They need to have the opportunity to ask questions. They need to have the opportunity to break up some of that talk. They can talk to teachers, they can talk to other students, but giving them that opportunity to practice language, to again, give more deeply process what they're learning will help them not only with the content, it will help them with their language skills, will help them with their fluency and accuracy, which I'll talk about more in a minute. Another way to provide interaction, in addition to the classroom experience where all the students are in one class, if possible, if teachers can provide one-on-one or small group support for English learners, that's really important. If you have a dedicated ESOL teacher who's working with your students, they could work together with the teacher during the class time. It may be more effective for them to have a separate time where they're working with English learners to reinforce what's been learned, to preview what's going to be learned in the next lesson, to provide that extra English interaction that they need. So that could be done in a one-on-one or small group mode. So multimodal comprehensible input. We're going to talk about input and output. So input is what they hear and what they read. Output is when they speak or listen. So multimodal comprehensible input means that they're not just getting the speaking, they're not just getting the writing, they're getting both. They can also get visual images, video to support that. The comprehensibility is a key factor. When English learners are just listening, and they're not getting any visuals, they're not getting vocabulary support, they're not getting the chance to ask questions or to demonstrate that, that they've understood something, they may lose a lot. So again, breaking things down into chunks, frequent comprehension checks, using visuals, paraphrasing, summarizing, all of these things, demonstrating, all of these things are helpful for increasing comprehensibility. And then output, pushed output it means that we're actually forcing the learner to write or speak. So giving the learner opportunities to speak a lot in class, to write is really important. We want to make sure that we're giving them opportunities for focus on accuracy, where like if they're writing something that we're focused, okay, did they write that accurately? Are they using the grammar in the way it should be? Did they use the right vocabulary word? We do want to support learners by giving them feedback on that, but it's also really important to give them opportunities for fluency practice so that they can, if we give them a timed, like write for 3 minutes on this topic and they're writing, that helps them to push their learning to the next level, to not have to stop and think about things as often, but just to talk more fluidly. Same thing for speaking. So the more practice they have, the better. Okay, supporting students at home. So all of those things that I just mentioned are things that teachers can do. So maintaining communication with teachers is going to be key, to ask them about these things, to let them know what your learner needs, to get information from them about what's coming up and how you can support them. Again, setting up routines and spaces has been talked about quite a bit already. So home language development, English language development, these are the last two things, and this is my last slide. So if students speak another language at home, helping them develop in that language is going to be one of the most important things that you can do to help learners develop in English. Research has supported this, that the reading skills, whatever skills students learn in their first language can be transferred to the new language that they're learning. So at home, some of the things you can do are play games. You can play language-specific games like you can play charades using academic vocabulary that students are learning or vocabulary they're learning from their class, like have those as the pot that you're playing charades with. If students are learning to read, you can play games like a modified Scrabble where you're having them use letters to form words. Really any kind of games with a language element will be helpful for students developing language because they're interacting, they're engaging with you, and they're using language communicatively. Stories, these can be books, these can be stories that are told from parent to child or from child to parent. If you look online, there are free stories. If you go on YouTube, stories are read aloud. People show the pictures and read the stories. You can look at in English and in the home language. Extension of academic content is important in both languages. So if you don't feel confident in English, you can do it in the other language the child speaks. If you feel more confident doing it in English, you can do that as well. But anything, even just talking about the content will help them develop those language skills. When you're teaching your child life skills, when you're doing creative activities with your child, talk through these. Again, it could be home language or English, whichever one you're focusing at the moment. Talk about what they're doing, help them build that vocabulary. If you're doing a recipe, okay, what do we do first? What do we do next? How much, like we measure, how do we know this? So all of that language helps them to think about, develop critical thinking skills, deepen their processing, and also help with their language. Videos, I mentioned YouTube earlier. YouTube is really good because with their videos, you can get them the captions. You can get them transcribed. It's not always 100%, but that can be a helpful support. So if you're looking for content on a topic and you find a video, you can actually download a transcript, and that would help with language development as well in either language. I don't know how well it's supported in other languages for the transcript. And then of course, peer and family interactions. So for the English, if you have family members that speak English well and you feel like you're a little weak with that, then you could have them interact with those family members through Skype, through playing games with them. I know my children are on video games like as much as possible, interacting with peers, so they get a lot of language development that way. Even though it's not academic, it helps with their fluency and it helps with their confidence in English. And I'm going to stop because I think I may have gone over time, but again, my name is Mary Tabat, and my email address is tabat@umbc.edu. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you very much, Mary. And I'm going to, we're going to make sure that in our thank you to everyone who spent the evening with us, we put all of your contact information in there. There's been a question about sharing the slides. So, you know, we will get to all of your personal opinions on that as we move forward. Now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Reeves. And I want to just throw it out there that Dr. Reeves was part of the think tank in this time we're spending together in this evening. She was crazy enough to listen to me on one of my, hey, I was thinking. So yeah, I told her, if you listen, you don't know what comes after it, and then you may be held accountable. So here she is being accountable, and we love you for it. So it's all yours, Nikki.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad that we